desperation. Developed in the shadows. Designed to devastate the enemy. Top-secret warcraft of the Allied and Axis powers are unleashed in surprise attacks, attempting to turn the tide of war. Suicide submarines, manned rocket interceptors, and radio-controlled bombers. Now, you're in the cockpit of the secret weapons of World War II. Experience the battle. Dissect the tactics. Relive the dogfights. August 24th, 1944. A massive B-17 bomber stream pierces the skies of Germany. The tide is turning against the Nazis. The Allies strike targets throughout the country with near impunity.
Their main target was a complex in the Merseburg area, which involved an armament factory and some chemical plants.
The Allied bombers are each packed with a heavy payload. B-51 Mustangs, the most advanced Allied fighter in Europe, provide top cover, ready to take on any fighters that rise to challenge the heavies. But 30,000 feet below, a lethal new threat is lying in wait. Luftwaffe pilot Siegfried Schubert prepares for the most dangerous mission of his life. He is one of the men of JG-400, tasked to fly an experimental interceptor into combat, the rocket-powered Me-163.
From Schubert's perspective, he saw an American aerial armada of about 450 B-17s escorted by 120 or more fighters headed towards Merseburg. The bombers were inbound to the target.
Command sounds the alarm. Torpedo, the code word for launch. Schubert's rocket engine ignites. 3,700 pounds of thrust crushes him back in his seat. The Comet rapidly reaches 200 miles per hour on the runway. Schubert eases the stick back slightly. The rocket plane lifts into the air. At 200 feet, Schubert ejects his landing gear. A small propeller in the nose generates electric power for the aircraft. Schubert accelerates past 400 miles per hour.
When that speed was reached, the pilot honked back on the stick into a dramatic 60 or even 70-degree climb. And with the tremendous amount of thrust that rocket engine provided, from takeoff to 40,000 feet could be as little as 3 or 3.5 minutes, and nothing on Earth came close to that.
Schubert launches into the stratosphere. In just 3 minutes, his Comet is perched nearly 10,000 feet above the incoming bomber stream.
The 163s positioned themselves overhead so that they could make a high-speed diving pass, which was their preferred method.
Schubert will use a standard Comet tactic. He'll climb above the bomber stream, then dive through it, making an attack run. After this first high-speed pass, he'll zoom climb again, bank around, and make a second pass. By this time, the Me-163's fuel will run dry, and he will be forced to return to base. Schubert noses over and dives on the B-17s, accelerating past 500 miles per hour. At nearly 3 times his enemy's speed, he closes rapidly. The Germans select a target. No one inside the bomber is aware that they are being stalked from above. The Comet pilot opens fire. High explosive shells burst inside the B-17's left wing. Schubert zooms past, too fast for any Allied gunner to track him. His victim lurches, dropping out of formation.
Now, at that time, Schubert wasn't able to try to keep score. He just knew that he had scored hits. In point of fact, that airplane never returned to base.
The Comet climbs, circling for another attack. Within seconds, Schubert has a new target in sight. He pitches over. Schubert's heavy cannon pummels another flying fortress. The B-17's right outboard engine bursts into flame.
That airplane went into an uncontrolled spiral and blew up in midair. So there was no doubt that that was a confirmed kill.
After a mere 8 minutes of powered flight, Schubert's rocket engine flames out. The German breaks off, having scored 2 victories in a single sortie. A record for a Comet pilot. Schubert glides back to base, scanning cautiously for Allied fighters. The Me-163 touches down on its belly, a bumpy ride, but one that the tough airframe is designed to take. The mission was brief, but it wreaked great havoc. For stunned American bomber crews, the top-secret Me-163 is a terrifying new threat. The design that became the rocket-powered Me-163 started as a glider in the 1930s.
The Me-163, stubby little thing with a lot of wing for an airplane that small. And that was really the reason that the 163 was developed in the first place, to test that wing and airframe configuration. But at some point, around 1941, some German engineers got the bright idea, suppose we put a rocket engine in this machine and see what that does.
The top-secret design was meant to supply the Luftwaffe with a cheap, short-range interceptor that could unleash lightning-quick attacks on Allied bombers.
An interceptor is a short-range, direct contact weapon with a pilot, and their only mission in life is to take off, engage enemy aircraft, and get back down to the ground.
A Walter rocket motor was selected for testing. The engine was a technological marvel. Reaction chemicals were first mixed in a steam generator, which powered the primary fuel pump. This pump drew more reactants from the fuel tanks, carrying them to the combustion chamber, where they were mixed and ignited to produce thrust. The engine's main drawback was the extreme volatility of the fuels.
What it was, you had the T-stop and the C-stop configuration. T-stop was nothing more than a high concentration of hydrogen peroxide. C-stop was a combination of methyl alcohol and hydrazine hydrate and water. Separately, in 2 separate containers, they were harmless compounds. But if you throw those things together pretty quickly, you have an explosion. So the technology issues they faced was, how do you control the explosion with piping in these fuels to get a controlled explosion to create rocket power without killing the pilot and blowing up the aircraft?